I was like, what's the point of trying so hard to do something with my life if literally nothing works? Because, my entire life, not only have I wanted to help people, but I've always just wanted to be successful. I've always wanted to be this high performer. I've always wanted to, like, my mindset was just like, if I'm here once, let me make the best of it. Let me do
Yeah.
everything I can to live the best life possible. And that's what I was trying to do. But it's like every single effort I was making was just failing. It was turning to dust, and I just couldn't grasp to understand why.
Yeah.
And it fueled a lot of emotions, different emotions. I was angry. I was jealous. I was depressed. I was apathetic. And I just kind of took a step back and I just said, you know what? If literally nothing I do works and I don't care anymore, I quit.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. All right, welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I am so grateful and excited to dive into this beautiful conversation, unpacking, limiting beliefs and what that all looks like. Because I feel like as humans, of course, we all experience that. So first and foremost, Carlo, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just really excited to connect and be in conversation and see where we're guided to go today.
Well, I am super, super excited to be here, Ashley. I've been looking forward to this. It's probably like one of the best ways to start my day. I had a nice workout, now off to a podcast. So this day has been nothing but a blessing. I'm really excited to kind of get to dive in.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that because I find that, when I record episodes on a Saturday and it's a Saturday morning, it just like fuels me and sets me up
Yeah,
for
yeah.
such a good day. So I'm grateful that I'm starting my weekend with you and being in conversation and just being able to, just learn more about your journey and your perspective and how you've navigated just limiting beliefs, fears, and what that all looks like for you. But I feel like we got to set it up and, give you the opportunity to share a little bit more about like who you are and what you do for the world.
Of course, yes. So I am a peak performance coach and a keynote speaker. And essentially what I do is I help high achieving individuals or ambitious individuals find that deeper fulfillment and how to perform at the highest level, whether it be in their personal lives or in their professional lives. Because, a lot of times the biggest thing that's the biggest thing that's holding us back is ourselves, right? And we might not even realize that. So I kind of help people find that quote unquote warrior within, so that way they can honestly be the best version of themselves and make the best decisions in any area of their life.
I love that. And what brought you to doing this type of work? Because I feel like there's a story behind it. We all have a reason as to why we get into the work that we do. And I'm curious, like, what were some of the things that were holding you back and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, of course. So honestly, this story goes way back to like when I was a kid. I never thought I was going to be like the mindset guy. I never thought I would be somebody who aspired to speak on stage and share my message. I've always had this like inclination inside when I was a kid that just said I wanted to help people. I just never knew exactly how I was going to do it. So I remember growing up as a kid and then going on into my teenage years. I just had this heart to help people. If I saw somebody on the side of the street, I would give them $1. I would buy them food. If my family went to travel, we went to maybe not the best country, right? And I would see some kids, like I would try to give something to them. There was a time I remember when I was visiting my family in New Jersey. We're driving from Virginia to Jersey, and we stop at a gas station, and I see this one guy who can't even make it to the pump. He's like pushing his car. And like my whole family's not being aware of it. I'm aware of it. And I just talk to my brothers. I'm like, hey, come on, follow me. They're like, where are we going? I was like, just follow me. So we help this guy push his car to the pump. And it's just something that like I don't think of. I just do because it's just something that I feel like I'm called to do. So, we kind of fast forward until I'm an adult. I'm in my early 20s. I'm just like, how am I really going to help people? I want to find a certain like modality, right? Well, this is when I kind of discovered fitness, and I just got bitten by the fitness bug, just for personal reasons first. I was like, I love lifting. I love eating healthy. I was blessed with a fast metabolism. So, seeing the foods I used to eat, I was like, I'm so happy that like I can process this food faster than maybe others. I'm blessed to have that. So once I kind of found out I wasn't eating the best foods, I was like, okay, I need to do something different. I need to be healthy. And then I just fell in love with fitness. And then, as time progressed, I was like, light bulb, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to help people with fitness. I'm going to be a personal trainer because I love fitness. I love service. So why don't I just marry these two? And that's what I did. So I got my certification. And around this time, this is when like COVID's going on. So I'm a trainer in a gym, but then COVID shuts everything down. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll start my own online training business. That was kind of like the end game anyway. So let me just start it early. So I'm training clients that way. And then eventually, as like 2020 is progressing, slowly gyms are like reopening. And I'm not full-time in my business yet, but I still needed to find a job, right? So the gyms are opening. So I was like, okay, let me just go back to work in a gym. So I get a job being a manager of a gym. And now we're kind of rearing towards the end of 2020. And this is where a lot of my story kind of comes into play, like the meat and potatoes, so to speak. This is where I started to feel these limiting beliefs, feel a lot of uncertainties about myself, feel not like myself, right? So towards the end of that year, I'm still at this job. My business hasn't taken off. It's being very, very slow. And this is around like Christmas time. So it's like maybe like less than a week before Christmas, right before my birthday. I have what I like to call my hell week, which was like anything that could go wrong did go wrong in 1 week. And I didn't know what to do or how to process it. So what happened was in this week, I lose that manager job at the gym. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, great timing. Right before the holidays, how am I supposed to, this is the time I want to enjoy myself with my family. And now I kind of have to, I'm in this survival mode of like, okay, well, I need to find a job. I need to make money. So there's that on my mind. And then to kind of add insult to injury, there was this girl I was seeing at the time who, I thought was the one, quote unquote. She was the one saying like, Carlo, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have kids, or, we're gonna do everything. And I was heavily invested in this relationship, as was this person. And then all of a sudden, like randomly, I just get a call in that same week that says, hey, Carlo, I want to break up. And I was like, what? So that came out of left field.
Yeah.
And then during that same week, I went through a really serious injury. I've had, it was a herniated disc in my L5-S1 vertebrae. And I've had back problems, kind of like ever since. And it was just so painful to the point where there was a period of time where I just couldn't walk. So being the fit guy, first and foremost, needing to move and kind of being forced to lay in bed just with your thoughts is not a pretty place to be. And on top of that, I'm thinking, okay, I have no job. I have a broken heart. And to like put salt in the wound here is the business I have with the online personal training, I'm failing miserably. It's just going down the tank. I'm spending more money than I'm making, like on advertisements, on marketing, on coaches. I'm trying to figure this game out. And for some reason, I just can't. And I'm in debt, broken heart, can't move. I'm just like, what do I do? Yeah. And that was where I kind of went to this rock bottom stage, so to speak. And I was just kind of thinking to myself, I was like, what's the point of trying so hard to do something with my life if literally nothing works? Because, my entire life, not only have I wanted to help people, but I've always just wanted to be successful. I've always wanted to be this high performer. I've always wanted to, like, my mindset was just like, if I'm here once, let me make the best of it. Let me do everything I can to live the best life possible. And that's what I was trying to do. But it's like every single effort I was making was just failing. It was turning to dust, and I just couldn't grasp to understand why.
Yeah.
And then it fueled a lot of emotions, different emotions. I was angry. I was jealous. I was depressed. I was apathetic. And I just kind of took a step back and I just said, you know what? If literally nothing I do works and I don't care anymore, I quit. And that's what led to, now we're in 2021, and I laid in bed every day for the year. I could care less about anything or anybody.
Wow.
You know, eventually my back didn't like heal completely during that time, but like I could walk, you know, I felt less pain, but I didn't care. You know, if I could walk, run, like I still couldn't work out, but like I didn't care. You know, it was so hard to leave my bed, let alone my bedroom. I called that space like my habitat, my cocoon, right? That was the place where I could be depressed. You know, it was the place where I didn't have to face my family, face people, face the world, because I felt ashamed of myself. I felt embarrassed because I had this identity of myself saying, I'm smart, I'm strong, I'm not a quitter, and I'll achieve anything I set my mind to. And it's like I was in this identity crisis as well, because I was like, maybe that was just a lie I was telling myself. Maybe I'm not this smart person. Maybe I'm not meant to help people. Maybe I'm just a loser. You know, and that's where a lot of limiting beliefs started to come into play. And I couldn't accept myself, so I didn't want anyone else to see that. What was really hard about it is I'm in my early 20s and I'm still living at home. So for somebody with me who has a lot of pride and should, you know, who's comparing himself to everyone he went to high school with, who's graduated from college, is married, has kids, got their own house, and I'm still with mommy and daddy, A, that hurt, and B, I didn't even communicate with my family. I just couldn't do it. Like, of course, I would still maybe utter a word here and there, but like, I was in my room 24/7. I would never go downstairs, never talk to my parents. I didn't talk to my brother or sister, friends, forget about it. You know, I just kind of cut everything and everyone out. And what was so difficult was, you know, I just couldn't escape these thoughts. It was like everywhere I looked, I just couldn't escape the reality of who I was or who I thought I was. And I would try anything to escape that, right? I would watch TV endlessly. Like I had a schedule. I couldn't sleep, mind you. Like for some reason, I would always wake up at like 3 a.m. And the guy who doesn't want to think is all of a sudden waking up every day at 3 a.m. and he's just thinking. So I was like, dang it. So I had a schedule. When I'd wake up, okay, as soon as I'd wake up, boom, TV's on. I knew what I would watch in the morning. And then all of a sudden, I knew what to do next. So I would like watch TV, play video games, listen to music, do anything just to stop being me, you know? And eventually, I mean, these things kind of wore out because I would still get triggered by them, right? Because with the comparison and with the envy I felt, I would see like the Billie Eilishes of the world, like the Post Malones. I would see these little kids on Stranger Things who were like 12 years old and they're acting and living their dream life. And I'm like, you don't know what real work is. You're a kid and now you have all this money. You're at the top of the mountain. And I'm here busting my butt since I was a kid trying to make something of myself. And now I'm in bed depressed and unfulfilled. I don't have a purpose. And I had a lot of resentment. And I hated everything. I hated everybody. And, you know, I hated myself. You know that saying when people say like, oh, I don't like that reflection in the mirror. I hated the reflection in the mirror. And that like isn't just a statement. I refuse to look at my face in the mirror. I couldn't even look at my own eyes. I just couldn't, you know? And with this new identity I had of myself, I was like, you know what, Carlo, you're just a failure. You're a loser. You'll never amount to anything. You know, you have no purpose. You're just gonna live like this and die. You know, best case scenario, you might get some unfulfilling job just to pay bills. And then once I kind of mapped out that possible reality, that's when I was like, what's the point? If that is my reality and that's going to be my future, I don't want it. So that's where the suicidal thoughts and the suicidal ideation came into play. And, that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I didn't want to do it. Like, I didn't want to end my life. I just wanted to end the pain.
Yeah.
And I didn't know another option. And I feel like that's a lot of people when they're in that position, is they don't want to take that route. But when they're kind of backed up into a corner and with no other direction to go in, it's like that's the only viable option. That's what makes sense. And I tried to get better. I really did. I tried to apply for some jobs here and there. If I did get the job, I might last a week maybe, but I just couldn't do it. If I were on my break, I'd be in my car crying. I'd be talking to my mom, just bawling my eyes out. If I were talking to my mom, I would have a panic attack and maybe not even go. So I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I tried therapy. That didn't really help me. So at this point, I'm just like, all right, I gotta clock out. I can't do it anymore. So there's this one day, towards more so like the end of the year, probably like fall time, like September, October time. And there's this one day where I'm just like, all right, here we go. The stage was set, so to speak, not to go into specifics, but I'm going to go through with this. And the only thing I can think of is like the present moment. And it's so strange because before we were recording, we were talking about the present moment and how important that is. But when we're on the other side of the spectrum and we're like, this is my present moment, this is all I have, but I'm not going to have it anymore. And, I'm about to take action. Meanwhile, my mom and dad are downstairs. They don't know what's going on. Ugh. And I'm about to take that leap, right? And it's like mind-boggling. And I got this huge panic attack. I just couldn't go through with it. I'm very emotional. I'm obviously getting emotional right now.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't do it. I put that to the side and I said, you know what? It may not be today, but it's going to be someday. And that was the safety net I had of saying, you know what? If it's not today, fine. We'll do it some other time. That was what kept me comfortable for some odd reason. And then we're in November of 2021, and my mom comes to me. She's like, "Hey, let's go out to lunch. Let's do something different. Let's change the routine a little bit. Your brother and sister are going to be joining us. Let's go out to lunch." And my immediate response is no. To leave me alone. I want to stay in bed. Eventually, she talked me into it, and I was like, "Okay, fine. We'll go out to lunch." It was the most awkward lunch of my life. It's just my family is around me talking, getting along, laughing, and I feel like I'm this invisible person just sitting by myself, eating my little salad, not communicating. I'm just in my own little world. Well, eventually, towards the end of the meal, my brother comes to me. He's like, "Hey, we're all going to Mom's house. You should ride with me. Just you and me. Let's go." Sure, you got it. So I'm driving home with my brother, and all of a sudden we park in our driveway, and then we had this like 10-minute conversation that felt like it lasted an eternity. And he puts the car in park, and he's like, "Okay, what can we do? How are we going to get you better? Because we've tried everything that we can think of, but we don't know what else to do. So you tell us, how can we make you better? Because I feel like I lost my brother. Your mom feels like she lost her son. So what do we do?" Mm-hmm. And I respond to him. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, if I knew of a way, I would be doing it, right? But I just don't have a solution. So I'm giving up. So you should give up too, because I can't find a way out of this darkness. Now, my brother, he couldn't like accept that answer. So he's just, he kind of steps away from like the technical stuff and like the logistics of, okay, let's make a plan. he just asks me, he's like, when he tells me, he's like, I'm your brother. You know, I would do anything under this blue and green earth for you. You're my brother. Would you do anything for me? And without hesitation, I said, yeah, of course. You know, we're brothers. That's what family does. He's like, okay, I have a favor I need from you. And I was like, crap. I didn't know this was like a trap you set for me. Okay, well, what's this favor? What do you need from me? And he says to me, I need you to go on a trip. I need you to do something different. Get out of your bedroom. Just go. And in my head, I'm thinking he's stupid because I'm like, do you know how hard it was to join you at the Cheesecake Factory and eat my little salad? And now you want me to hop on a plane to go God knows where? Like, no, I'm not doing that. And then the next thing he said to me kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. He says to me, at this point, what do you have to lose? And then I really took it in. I was like, you know what? And I'm processing. I'm like, honestly, I don't have anything else to lose. I'm literally at the rock bottom stage. I have nothing else to lose, you know. So as I'm thinking about this, I'm processing his proposal. And then two things happened. I don't know how this happened. It was just spur of the moment, but I feel like these two things I would credit to putting me on this yellow brick road, so to speak, to finding this breakthrough. The first thing I did was I just kept saying to myself internally like a mantra, like, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to go, I want to stay. And I just kept saying that over and over again. And I was focusing not so much on the life I was living, because that's all I was doing at the time. You know, Carlo, who's laying in bed every day, crying when he goes to sleep at night, wakes up crying, and just feels unfulfilled, doesn't have a purpose. I stopped focusing on that. And I just focused on the life I wanted to live. I was focusing on the Carlo who's successful, who's happy, who's, you know, got a smile on his face every day. And that's who I was really placing my intention on. And then the second thing I did was I imagined I struck a match from a matchbook. And there's this tiny flame on it. And this tiny flame I thought represented the real version of me. Even though it's so small, it's still flickering. It's still there. And I felt like it sat in my gut. And this little flame I thought represented the Carlo who's ambitious, who's going to help people, who's the life of the party. And even though it was still really small, he was still alive. And I just kept focusing on him. And the more I focused on this tiny flame, it just grew, it grew. And I felt like this like fireball. I felt like the Human Torch, so to speak. And then I answered my brother. I'm like, okay, I'll go on this trip. And then he's really excited now. He's like, okay, perfect. I love that answer. Where do you want to go? Now, I'm in Virginia. So around that time in November, it's like, Virginia's weird because, you know, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold during that time. Around that time, it was a little chilly. So I said to myself, you know, I don't want to go anywhere else cold. What's the point of doing that? Let's go somewhere warm. He says, okay, where? The first thing that pops in my head, Florida. Perfect. Okay. When do you want to go? I don't know, soon. Okay, fair enough. Do you want to go alone? Do you want to come with me? What would you like to do? Please come with me. If I go alone, I'll probably just lay in the hotel room all day. So, you know, come along. He says, okay. Don't worry about anything. I will send you details tonight. That was a Sunday. I get a text message that night with plane tickets that our plane is leaving on Tuesday. Wow. And we're going to West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, he didn't know, I didn't know where West Palm Beach, Florida is. We didn't know if it was on the East Coast, West Coast. We didn't know anything. He literally picked it only because it sounded attractive. That's the only reason. So, okay, we board our flight. We're going to Florida. And I immediately regret it. Like, we have a layover in Charlotte. I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I get out of bed? I don't want to be here. And he's trying to like psych me up, he's like, come on, we're going to Florida. And I'm having none of it. So we arrive in Florida. Day one is atrocious. I I just could care less. Day 2, same thing. You know, we're trying to figure out things to do. He wants to like rent jet skis, go to the beach, go deep sea fishing, doing all these things. I'm just like, the thought of that was increasing my anxiety. And I was like, I can't do that. Please don't make me do that. So the most exciting thing and like party-filled activity we had done to that point was we had bought a deck of cards at like a CVS and played Go Fish in the park. Like, that was it.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
This was like around midday on day 2. And we're sitting outside this like cafe or restaurant on this patio. And we're just talking, you know, we're just trying to pass the time. And we're having a conversation. And all of a sudden, he just puts his phone down. And he's like, hey, I found something else for us, like an activity for us to do. I'm not going to tell you what it is, though. You just need to follow me. And I'm like, what? Like, do you know, like, this is increasing my anxiety again. Like, don't do this to me. What are we doing? He says, just shut up and walk. I'm like, okay. And in my head, I'm thinking the worst. I'm like, oh, he probably rented jet skis. We're going to go, you know, to a nightclub or something. I'm going to be so uncomfortable. And we're just walking, and all of a sudden, we're at the stoplight. And we're about to do the crosswalk. I'm just waiting for like the little green guy picture to kind of appear. And I'm just waiting until the light turns green. I'm just taking in my surroundings, not really making much of it. And I see this big building in front of me. And it says West Palm Beach Convention Center. I'm like, okay, I don't really think anything of it. But then I look at the sign sticking out of the ground. And it's this electronic sign that says, Tony Robbins, unleash the power within. And I like freeze. And I look at my brother, and he's not saying anything. He's playing dumb. I'm like, you didn't. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you really? You did this? So it turns out we happened to be in the right place, in the right time, the exact same moment where we're attending the seminar, right? For Tony freaking Robbins. Now, I don't know if you know, like, his events.
I have chills.
Like, these events, like, they're with, like, 10,000 people. I'm sure you probably know. And I'm sitting in this room on day 1, and I'm so scared. I'm so pessimistic. I'm skeptical. Because, like, as amazing as that feeling was of, like, oh, we're going to the seminar. Because, I mean, he and I, you know, we've always been involved in personal development. And we see Tony Robbins as, like, the king of personal development. You know, he just knows his stuff. So I'm still in this room in my chair, and I'm like, I hope this isn't like a concert type of event. I hope it's not like a vacation experience. You know, like when you're on vacation, you have fun. It's like, okay, back to reality, back to work, back to the same. Like I was fearing that.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I was just completely present. You know, I played full out, as they like to say. I put forth 100% of, you know, my ability, and I just listened, and I took notes, and I did everything. And yes, what I learned there definitely helped me see a bigger picture. But I would honestly say also what saved my life was getting out of bed and getting on a plane, right? So my motto is, it does not need to take years to change your life. It does not need to take months. It does not need to take days. It literally all relies on just one moment that leads to one decision that leads to one action. And that action will save your life. It did for me. And that one moment in the car led to a decision of me getting on a plane to go to Florida that led me actually having my butt in Florida. And all of a sudden, the universe provided. You know, God, the universe, whatever you choose to believe, said, you're not done yet, right? So it was divine intervention, as I like to call it, you know? So when I'm having this breakthrough, I am in tears. I am bawling. I can barely see and open my eyes because I'm so clouded by my tears. And I had this, like, crystal clear telepathic communication with God, with the universe, whatever. And I felt like the only person in the room again. And it was like, Carlo, this is what you're going to do now. This is how you're going to help people. You're going to share your message. You're going to help people unlock the real potential, the real version of themselves. Because if you can go from rock bottom to going on top of the rock, this is what you're meant to do. Because if you can do it, why can't other people do it? So share this. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, you got it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I transitioned my personal training business to more so like peak performance coaching, not just motivational speaking. It's like, of course, you're going to be motivated and inspired, but it's like actual technical things you can do to really change your mindset, change your perspective, to really unleash the real version of yourself, so that way you can perform, so you can live, so you can be happy, so you can be fulfilled, see purpose. And that's, where I am today.
Oh my gosh. I think I just ate up every single moment of that story. Holy crap. My brain is spiraling in, like, I'm just going in so many different directions, in the sense of, first and foremost, like, back to present moment. Like, I'm just so grateful to literally be in this moment with you and being able to hear your journey and your story. And honestly, I was getting emotional too, even before you got emotional, because like, I think I just, like, I think about that, right? I think about what it takes for things to happen, like the decisions that you make, they are never by accident, right? And so I think about all the decisions that you've made for us to be in this moment. And I think about all the decisions that I've made to lead up into this moment here and now. And it's just looking like life is this miracle. And, when we can see that, we end up not taking advantage of it because we see the miracle in it and the beauty. And so, yeah, I'm grateful that you're here in this moment, and you have such an incredible, like, journey and story, and the way that you've ended up where you ended up. Of course, like, I resonated so much when you were kind of talking about being a kid and just wanting to help people, because those are the exact same questions. Like, I remember being in my early 20s, or just kind of at that phase where, when you're high school and you're nearing the end of that journey in high school, and they're like, okay, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And I'm like, question mark, blank. I'm like, I have no idea. I just know, like, there was something in me that knew that I wanted to help people, but I was like, how does everyone around me, like, is something wrong with me? How does everyone around me know exactly what they want to do? And I was just like, blank. I was like, okay, well, I don't feel called to, like, jump into school and go to college or university. So I'm just going to, I'm going to work, right? And we're just going to take our time to figure this out. And then, it landed. And I was like, okay, we're going to go down this path. Did it end up looking exactly what I thought it would be? Because I don't do anything necessarily with my schooling. I went to school for social work. And now it's just like in this other path of helping people. But it's just so interesting to land and just seeing the reflection. And I also was thinking about that when you're at this event, specifically with Tony Robbins, and you're like seeing yourself and what's happening. It's like, that is a reflection. Like, when we see that and we can correlate, I can see myself doing what that person is doing. I always say, like, really pay attention to that, because that means that lives inside of you. There's not a separation. There's actually that is already within you and already inside of you. There is something telling you, like, yeah, that's part of you. That is who you are too. And it's like a, me too in a different way, right? It's like, that's me too. Like, I see myself in that person and in that. So yeah, like, those were just some of the things that were coming through. But I also was like, there was questions coming through, and I'm like, what I found fascinating, I'm kind of curious your perspective on this, especially working with peak, those that are wanting, like, high achievers, right? Like, we just really want to have a life that is fulfilled with purpose. What I think I was thinking about was kind of just like how interesting, you have this peak and you reach this level of success, and then how almost like something happens. Is it self-sabotage?
is it like, what happens where we then all of a sudden have all these like these wave of limiting beliefs that come through, and it kind of like stops us in their track, and then there's this whole like rebuilding phase.
Yeah.
Rebuilding, and now we're like at this it's just so fascinating to me, and I'm curious if you see that more and more with people, like that experience, because that's what I noticed is like you had this, you were figuring out, okay, fitness, and then this like dip, right? Like the darkness, whatever you want to call it, and then this peak again. So I'm curious, do you see that a lot? And like, yeah, what is it?
I do. And honestly, I consider it like the different levels of growth, the different levels of life, right?
Mm,
I'm sure you probably heard this before. Like, people compare life to a video game, right? So there's level one, right? And then it has its own challenges. And then eventually, when you kind of beat the boss, so to speak, of that level, you kind of graduate to level two, and so on and so on.
mm-hmm.
So there's this book I read. It's on the tip of my tongue. I forget the name. I forget the author, but there was a beautiful illustration of it, and it's on my bookshelf. It's like a book for adults, but condensed in a picture book for kids. I don't know why I had it. It was like a gift to me, but the illustration of it examples it what you just said perfectly. Is, we do grow and we become a better version of ourselves, but all of a sudden we kind of go up, and all of a sudden we kind of take a negative loop and are kind of down. Almost like if you're looking at the stock market, it kind of takes a small plummet, but then all of a sudden you're still at a higher level than when you started, right? But now you're on this new level. It has its own challenges. And eventually, when you kind of graduate from that, you kind of go up, 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 and all of a sudden you kind of take another loop, and you see its own challenges, and you kind of fall, and you might, quote unquote, say fail, or have these limiting beliefs, or not perform at the highest level where you thought you could have at that point. Then that cycle keeps continuing. It's not, oh, you do well, you suck, you do well, you suck. It's you're continuously growing, but you're still facing challenges along the way. And then when you face those challenges, you yourself are growing, adapting, and still kind of climbing this mountain, so to speak.
Do you think it's possible to be able to like continue to grow and not always have to have these moments where, where we end up in such a negative downward spiral? And maybe that's just looking at like tools, and I feel like that's what happens too, is along the way you start to know yourself better, you start to understand yourself better, you start to be able to connect more with yourself, to be able to say, what is it that I need in this moment as we're experiencing this negative spiral, right? I feel like a lot of the stories and journeys, like there is this really one moment, that pivotal moment where the breakdown happens. But I don't feel like we always necessarily have to experience such low lows in order to keep growing. And I'm curious if you, like, your perspective on that too, if you feel the same or differently.
I feel the exact same. I think, of course, when you look at any successful story, the most common denominator is that there's so much pain involved and suffering. Maybe not everybody, but like a lot of the stories that you hear about, it's like they're at the lowest of lows, and all of a sudden they kind of reach this mountaintop.
Yeah.
I don't think, as one continuously grows, that when you do have those lows, it's not like life-threatening, altering, identity crisis mode, because as you mentioned, we have tools, we have exercises, we have things to do that can prevent us from going to those low lows. I only think the reason why we get to those low lows that can force a change is when someone goes and experiences so much pain where they're forced to make a change, right? But when we are in that position where we still feel a low, but we have a tool belt, we have tools in the toolbox or plays in the playbook to look at, to pull from, to say, okay, I've been in a situation like this before or something similar. I know what I can do so I can continue to grow, right? So I think a part of that is a lot of self-awareness, right? Understanding what happened in the past, what can you do differently to the next time it happens like this again. So to answer your question, to kind of summarize it, is we don't need to go to these low lows to continue to grow, right? We can still have a low, but learn from it, do something different, grow, use something that we know helped us in the past, or find a new way to help ourselves, and then continue to grow.
Yeah. I think I just constantly think about just like when you think about this, like growth, whether you think of it from the lens of spirituality and just, sometimes the healing process, or, what that looks like, there's so much talk around like the breakdown, right? Like that, where everything just like crumbles. And I think what I think about is just, it doesn't always have to look like that. It's not always going to look like that. There might be that one moment, right? There might be that one experience, that pivotal experience to course correct you. Cause I don't think I think it truly is a course correct. And ultimately it just ends up being where like this process of growth, I think what I continue to always come back to is just like bringing the playfulness and the fun back into it. Because I feel like, oftentimes, high achievers, those that are like just on this mission, have a movement, we're working towards something. Sometimes we take ourselves pretty freaking seriously. And it makes the journey not so fun. And, we get into these moments where like, I'm a failure and I'm going to quit and I'm going to give up. And we're just so hard on ourselves. And so like, I think just bringing back, how can we bring more play and gentleness as we are growing, and not bringing in such this like seriousness attitude of like, yep, you're a failure. You didn't do this right. Like, I don't understand why we have to like have this relationship with ourselves sometimes, but yeah, like I'm curious with that is like, how do you bring more of the gentleness and the playfulness back into your life and with your clients?
I love that. I love that question, because I don't know if you've seen this before, or you kind of see this trend, but like when people say peak performance, when people say high achiever, when people say, all these successful terms, all of a sudden people ultimately always think of results-based thinking.
Yes.
Oh, I'm a high achiever. That means I have all the success, and I have 100% sales record, and I have such a successful business, and I have an awesome car. Like when people say the word peak performance, success, whatever, it's like always revolved around results, and it's not. It's about being your best self in every single area of your life. That's what I consider peak performance, high achieving success. Is how can I be my best version in every single area of my life, and how can I be present? How can I be myself, truly myself, in all areas? It's not black or white. We need to add color, right? So for me, it's like I need presence. I know we really said that word a lot, but honestly, that is key, because when we are these high achievers and we have these goals and we want to hit this amount of revenue sales in our business, or we need to increase our followers on Instagram by this much by this time this month, it's like that's all we're focusing on. But for me, I need to kind of come back to reality, right? So like before I start my days, like my work days, I will spend like 5 minutes outside just like being still. I will be barefoot in the grass, feel the grass under my feet. I will feel the wind on my face. I will see the trees swaying, and like I will genuinely love and appreciate that moment I'm in. And in between the times when I am working, like I don't want, of course it's work, and of course there are things, responsibilities we need to do to make sure we are still hitting our goals. But it's like, how can I make it fun? How can I make it a game? How can I can I listen to a song while I'm doing it? Can I like whistle while I'm doing like, I don't care what it is, but if it's something stupid, silly, but puts a smile on your face, do it. Sometimes I catch myself just talking to myself in silly voices, silly accents. Like if I'm emailing with a person, I see their name, it's a funny name, I'll like say their name in a funny way. It's just like, it makes me happy. It's funny, and it's like, I don't care if this puts money in my bank account or not. Of course, we still have food to put on the table, but it's like, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm just like, I'm in the present moment, just enjoying it. Like, okay, John Smith, haha, John Smith. Like I'm being stupid. Like I'm being a boy, a playful little kid. And I feel like when we take ourselves so seriously, it takes the fun out of it, takes the fulfillment out of it. And then when we don't see the results, that's where we get a lot of unfulfillment, a lot of, oh, I'm going to quit, I suck at this. But when we involve play, when we laugh and joke, and still get to the end result and still kind of keep it on the same track of going towards that destination that we crave. I think that is a beautiful blend. That's what's really going to help you become successful externally and internally. So ways that I'll do it to help my clients, as per your question, is like, when I'm having coaching calls, a lot of times these conversations, I don't want to say get dark. I mean, they do, but there's a lot of emotion involved because, again, this is somebody's life. And then all of a sudden, I'll say something random. I'll say, hey, put your finger up like this. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, do a giant circle with your finger. Okay. And I tell them to stick up their nose. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I stick your finger up your nose. And I'm doing it simultaneously. They're like, okay. And they're doing this, like pretending it's not like in their nose. I'm like, I see you. Put your freaking finger in your nose. Like, Carlo, what's this? Just shut up and do it. So they do it. I just tell them to say a funny phrase, or I tell them to say the same phrase they did. That is making them feel less of themselves. Like, oh, I'm a loser, Carlo. I'm not fulfilled. I just can't do it. And I tell them to say that exact same phrase, but in a funny voice, with your finger up your nose. And then when they're saying like, I'm a loser, like it makes them laugh. And then they're in a completely different state. And then the call takes a completely different direction. And now they're in a different place to think differently, to make better decisions. And it's like, it's just part of that. Sometimes I'll have dance parties on my calls to not only change your state, because that's obviously helping, but it's like, when's the last time you freaking danced, right? And when's the last time you genuinely had a smile on your face, you just had fun? Those are just a couple of different ways to kind of answer your question. It's a very long answer to your question, but that's just something I do.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think there is so much power. And I know Tony Robbins talks a lot about it. And, I learned from one of my business partners too. Like she really brought in this piece around changing your state, and also just, what state do you want to cultivate when you want to do something, right? Like for us in the world of, writing books and supporting people through that, it was, how do you want to feel when you sit down to actually work and write this book that you're working on? Like, what is it? You don't want to be in this state of like, I'm tired and I suck, because that gets translated into the words that you are typing. I genuinely feel that the state that in which we do anything is going to be felt. So specifically writing a book, like when you're coming from this place of like, I suck, I don't know what I'm talking about, it's going to be felt,
Yep.
And the power of our state, and the way that I kind of translated it, or even just think about it in this moment listening to you too, is just, it's such mental fogginess that we're coming from in this place. Like it's all mental fog. And when we can just come back to our body, like the below, you know what I mean? Like below the throat, below the head, and you can shift that, things feel differently. So the dance party, when just things are not making sense and you just feel that fogginess, I feel it so much and all the time. And I'll step away from whatever it is that I'm doing, no matter if there was a deadline, whatever it is, that deadline is not as important, because I'm not going to give it my best. I'm simply not going to give it my best. So going for a walk, literally doing anything, getting outside of your four walls. I think sometimes we think like making that shift and making that change has to be so drastic. And I know you were kind of saying it before. It has to be so drastic. It really doesn't. It's not going to be this like, it's not going to be when you hit a certain financial goal. That's going to be for sure. And that's what I think is this shift. And I'm really glad you highlighted this piece around like the peak performance and the high achiever, because it feels very much result driven. And yet I think the shift is to come back to the internal success, not just the external success that we're seeing. The external success, beautiful. Yes, 100%. That's just going to be the end result from the internal. And at the end of our lives, really, at the end of our lives, are we going to be thinking about, I missed this deadline, I missed this goal, I didn't hit it? Probably not. We're going to be thinking about how we actually felt about our life, not what we did, And that's what I think, coming back to that on an everyday basis, ultimately you'll make better decisions. And it's this ripple effect.
No, I mean, you said it perfectly. And I love what you said about ripple effect, because that one thing you do to make yourself truly perform at your highest self, right? Unlock your true potential by, first off, making sure the inside is okay. I think that is what is going to be reflected outside. As you mentioned, writing the book, getting the sales results, whatever it is you're working toward. That one single pebble you drop in the pond of saying, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be authentic. I will live in abundance. I will be grateful, whatever the case may be. That will expand to every single area of your life. So that was beautifully said.
Yeah, I so agree. Oh my gosh. I feel like just even through like your story and you sharing that, there was so much in that. And, we just uncovered and unraveled into so many other beautiful things. But I feel like, too, I really want to give you the space for those that kind of are feeling very like connected to you and your journey and your story and are really resonating. Where can people follow you, connect with you, work with you? What does that look like?
Of course, yeah. So I congregate mostly on Instagram, so people can go ahead and follow me on Carlo Taormina _coach. Honestly, I in open book, as you obviously have heard and seen. I have no hesitations to share anything else with you that you may need to know, any questions, or if you even want help. I will love to give you a complimentary coaching call. Just DM me and DM me the words beyond the surface, just so I know you came from this podcast. But I would love to help in any way I can, because that's just who I want to do, who I want to help, and what I want to do. And if I could just say one last thing to kind of be the send-off for anyone who needs additional help, if we can kind of expand on that ripple effect painting that you kind of painted, because I love that analogy, is we will always get what we focus on every step of the time, every step of the way, right? And if we're always focusing on what's wrong in our lives, it's exactly what we're going to get. And that's what's going to expand, just like that ripple in the pond, right? So our thoughts become our feelings and emotions, and these feelings and emotions will become our actions. And these actions obviously are going to lead to something good or something bad. But it all starts with what we're focusing on and how we feel right now ourselves internally, and what we're focusing on, and how can we take what's inside and reflect it outside, right? So if we're always focusing on, oh, I have to pay my bills, I have, this deadline, I need to make X amount of money, I need to do this, it's like, how do you expect to be truly happy, truly at peace with yourself if you're always focusing on that? And one thing I learned when I was listening to Tony Robbins is, whatever is wrong will always be available, but so is what's right. So if you shift focus to what is going on that's right in your life, right? You waking up, you having food in the refrigerator, you having loved ones that you can call at any time of the day, having genuine relationships, connections, having your fur baby, whatever the case may be. It's like there's so many, even if it's a little thing, I have coffee, like so many little beautiful blessings. And if we focus on these little things that honestly bring us joy, that's what we're going to focus on. That's going to make us feel great inside. And therefore, that's what's going to give us a great day externally. So you get what you focus on, and that's the end of my TED Talk. Mic drop.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm glad that you threw in that piece around joy, because that was screaming as you were sharing. I was like, follow what brings you joy. Because the more that you follow what brings you joy, the more that's going to show up in your life. The more you're going to have the opportunities to do more of what brings you joy. And it gets to be as simple as that. It really does. And it's the intentionality that we bring to everything that we do that brings us joy, and the presence that we give it. Like you said, the simplicity of the cup of coffee that you have in the morning. Mm-hmm. It could just be that silence, 5 minutes, drinking that, and you can feel so fulfilled and present and filled with joy. And that can be what trickles out into your day. And so I love that so much, what you focus on. That is truly a mic drop. So thank you, Carlo. I appreciate you. I genuinely loved every piece of this conversation. I'm so grateful for your openness as well, like sharing your journey and your story, because it's not easy. And, sometimes we can share the highlight pieces, but I'm just so grateful that you really like dove in and took us on the journey with you. I felt like I was with you every step of the way, you know, from the moment, you know, everything. Like I truly did. And to the moment that you like jumped on that plane, like I felt like I was with you. So thank
Thank you
you. I
so
appreciate you.
much. I mean, I thank you for letting me share my story and my message on your platform. In the hopes to help change lives. That's why we do this. So thank you very much. You are a beautiful soul. I freaking love you so much. Thank you. And I have nothing but love for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.